Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Keene, opinion editor at the Washington Times.
Good morning. Being a Wisconsinite myself, it's a pleasure to follow a panel where we discuss saving my home state. And you know, Reince Priebus, who's now the national chairman of the Republican Party, was a key to that, along with Scott Walker, Paul Ryan, and others. So the folks that you heard from really were and are the people who did that in Wisconsin. It's being taken to other states, and hopefully it'll work nationally as well. But we're here today, and you'll have to excuse my voice. I have a little bit of a cold. But we're here today on the 50th anniversary, really, of the founding of the American Conservative Union, at this, our 41st Conservative Political Action Conference, to discuss the early movement, how it developed, how we've come together, and how we've been successful. And a lot of the people today don't realize exactly the kind of situation that we faced as conservatives back in the day, as they call it. When the conservative movement began, and a lot of people date it either to the publication of Bill Buckley's God and Man at Yale or the 1955 founding of National Review. In 1960, Young Americans for Freedom was founded. In 1964, in the ashes of the Goldwater campaign, the American Conservative Union was founded. But in those days, when people joke about how you could get together in a phone booth, it was really true. In the early movement, and National Review and Bill Buckley were key to this. In the early movement, we were all sort of mentored by different conservative leaders. They could do that because there weren't many of us. My mentor in those days was Frank Meyer, who will be discussed here because of his contribution to the movement. Frank was perhaps the highest ranking American communist to defect, became the book review editor of National Review when it was founded, and more importantly was the conscience and principal strategist, I think, of the early conservative movement. National Review, as I think we all know, has from that day to this occupied a crucial role within our movement as the movement's grown. We have on our panel today, and before I get to introducing them, you should be reminded, first of all, that you can ask questions you tweet questions. Being an old guy, this is for you, not for me. At CPAC News using the hashtag Keene Panel, and that's Keene. In addition to that, let me just urge everybody today, before you go to lunch or after lunch, to vote in the Washington Times sponsored straw poll. I urge you to do that not just because I'm now with the Washington Times and we're sponsoring the straw poll, but because the straw poll has historically been an important indicator of where we are as conservatives on an annual basis. So I hope that you'll all take a minute, if you haven't done it so far, to make your opinions known in the Washington Times CPAC straw poll. I'm going to bring the panel up, and these are folks who carry on the tradition. You know, this conference looks to the future. We're talking here this weekend about what we need to do and what we see coming. But in order to look to the future, in order to handle the challenges of today and tomorrow, you have to know where you came from, you have to know what you believe, and you have to know what principles are important to your future endeavors. So this panel combines a sense of the history of the movement and the forward-looking kinds of perspectives that we're considering this weekend. First, I'd like to welcome Chris Long. Chris is president and CEO of the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, ISI. He's a graduate of George Mason University. And for those of you who, most of you I think are familiar with ISI, but like National Review, like the ACU, ISI was crucial in the early days of the movement. When I was a student in college, you went to ISI seminars to learn what it was that you needed to read, what were the principles of this evolving movement that you were becoming a part of. ISI and these other organizations essentially socialized young, aspiring conservatives into the movement so that when they went forward in life to whatever they were doing, they understood not just what they needed to do, but why. They understood the philosophical bases of the movement and the principles that they represented. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Rich Lowry. Many of you know Rich. Rich is editor of the National Review. He too graduated from college in Virginia, but at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. And Rich has really brought National Review into the present day. He was really Bill Buckley's successor, and has done a great job at National Review and has a great deal to offer on these matters. His most recent book is on Lincoln and is worth reading for those of you who haven't yet bought it. This is a pitch which you'll pay me for later. Then we have Katherine Mangu-Ward. Katherine is managing editor of Reason magazine. And you know, this panel is very much like the early and the present conservative movement. We were talking backstage, and the one thing we all share is we all edited campus newspapers or magazines during our college years, and that's how we got into some of these things. But we also, in many ways, represent different wings or aspects of what is the conservative movement and the coalition that makes up that movement. Libertarians, faith-based conservatives, people that are strong on national defense. This is what the movement has always been about and remains today. Finally, Dr. Paul Kengor, who's a professor of political science at Grove City College. You've read some of Dr. Kengor's writings. His most recent book, which if you've got any money left after you buy Rich's book, it would be worth investing in 11 Principles of a Reagan Conservative. He's written other books, but this is the one I think that you need now, and I think it would stand you in good stead as we move forward. So rather than haranguing you, which I've done in years past, I'm going to join the panel and we'll discuss conservatism as it was, as it is, and where we're going. Thank you.